I'll speak about the fact that it got Khalsa Aid accused of being a front for a terror group.
But first, we want to talk about this huge hoo-ha over pizza. As most of you may be aware, there was a lot of commotion on social media from the Indian media and a lot of the kind of right-wing nationalists in India over the fact that the protesters were cooking pizza for langar for one another.
Shocking, really shocking that just this simple act could prompt so much outrage, could have people questioning the integrity of the protesters based on pizza. I mean, we all, I'm sure there's no one out there that dislikes pizza, but we didn't know that pizza was this powerful when it comes to kind of its political influence. But I guess at the crux of it is this narrative that the farmers, especially Punjabi Sikh farmers, that they are kind of well-off people. They are wealthy, and therefore look at them having these luxuries like pizza without really considering the fact that pizza is a cheap, easy to make food, especially in this kind of environment at a protest site where they have ovens on site, but they probably don't have the means to cook kind of, the extravagant kind of sabjiyan or curries, if you will, that, we're used to eating as easily anyway. So foods like pizza are just so much easier, but it did prompt, again, a lot of outrage and a lot of questioning about the integrity of our protesters.
It's just another one of these examples of the Indian media trying to get anything they can and use it against the Sikhs. Last week we talked about, the idea of labeling people as extremists and separatists. Now they're talking about pizza. Of all the things in the world to accuse people over, pizza is frankly, again, ridiculous. It wasn't just pizzas.
Yeah, it wasn't just pizzas.
We also saw a lot of outrage over the fact that these elderly farmers who had walked all the way from Punjab to Delhi on foot were greeted by the Khalsa Aid, which is a humanitarian charity headquartered here in the UK. And they provided these foot massage machines for people to use, to just help them relieve some of that pain.
And from our perspective, as the diaspora, the Punjabi Sikh diaspora, this is exactly what we want to see. We're delighted as a community to see Khalsa Aid getting these farmers, especially those that are elderly, as you can see from this picture, the kind of treatment that we'd want to give them. A lot of them are sleeping literally on the roads now, or they're sleeping in trucks and trolleys. And to see them get something which can kind of bring them a bit of relief, that for us, that's beautiful. It has the community all across the world praising Khalsa Aid for the way they're working for our community out there. But again, the outrage, especially on this one, was incredible. And I think it didn't just come across with outrage, but I'll speak about the fact that it got Khalsa Aid accused of being a front for a terror group.
Absolutely. Which is ridiculous because the whole of India is quite familiar with Ravi Singh.
Yeah.
All of the diaspora across the West is also very familiar with Ravi Singh.
I would say maybe the world's most known humanitarian today.
Yeah. And never once has it ever been brought up that he's got any ties to any terror organization ever. But when he starts bringing foot massage machines to protesters, now all of a sudden he's known to be, some sort of terrorist or some sort of
front for a terror organization, as what they were saying. And from our perspective, the only link I could see, so just to be clear, and Op India, which is an opinion-based, I would say, a column site for Indian news outlet, so mainly columns written. They specifically said that Khalsa Aid is a front for a group that were freedom fighters, we would say, but the Indian media would say terrorists back in the 80s when, the Sikh genocide occurred, and the Sikh genocide continued through the form of the fake encounters massacres. So Babur Khalsa are the name of a group, and Khalsa Aid, based on what I can only view as the link in the words of the names, are being called a front for this organization. And it's just incredible, and I think very telling about the Indian state media, or those that run state narratives, that this was prompted by Khalsa Aid doing something as beautiful as providing our protesters with foot massages.
Absolutely. And this is the kind of seva, the selfless service that we're supposed to do for our elders. You know, I remember when I was younger, my granddads used to say to me, you know, "Kut my latta kutta,"
Yeah,
no? Like you're
very
supposed
familiar. Yeah,
yeah, you know, and this is if we were able to, I would love to do this seva for them and actually, you know, massage their feet myself. But you know, the fact that we've, like you said, we're so happy that, you know, we can see that they've actually got these massage machines, and this is something to be celebrated. But again, the Indian media is just using this against Khalsa Aid, against the protesters, and trying to tie it again with terrorism when it's nothing of the sort.
And just going back then to kind of focusing on the Indian media and the way they're covering the continuing protest, we have to keep in mind a few things. Firstly, in 2020, the press freedom rankings ranked India 142nd for press freedom. So there's 141 countries where the press is freer in the world. So India is very low on those rankings. Furthermore, you know, there's journalists out there that, you know, we'll discuss more with our guests that we're going to speak to, that have been attacked for their work covering the protests in an authentic way. And this doesn't just relate to the protests. Actually, historically, this is something we've covered. I've personally spoke to journalists about this, where they have been threatened and abused for the way they're covering things. So we have to bear that in mind when we're talking about the Indian media coverage, that there is definitely pressure that is put on these journalists and these outlets to cover these things a certain way, a pressure which isn't just kind of, you know, metaphorical or even just like mental or in any way. It's actual physical pressure where they could end up facing violence for the way they cover stories. So, you know, we just have to learn to accept it. If there's one thing that I could say about it, what we would hope is that outside India, other countries, other media outlets would recognize that this is a huge issue and be open about it in India. I remember watching a segment from The Daily Show, a famous American satire show, where they sent out a comedian there to get some sort of funny headline on the front page of a newspaper. And he managed to do it just by paying his way forward to do it. So it needs to be really accepted that a lot of what information that's coming from Indian media into other countries like the West, we really just can't trust it.